So we are live now, John. Hi
Yeah, live.
everyone.
So hello,
We are
hello to
live.
all of your viewers.
Yes, so John and I don't even know if I told you this, but I started a new channel. We're actually going to be on a new channel. John is was with us for a couple interviews in our last channel. John is an amazing human. He is an author. He is a grief and hospice specialist. He's been a hospice minister for over 40 years. And you just got done telling me that that work's been a little crazy. So has it been in the hospice arena that things have been a little nutty?
Yeah, what happened was I had a hugely busy 2 days planned for today and tomorrow,
Yeah.
and then my colleague had to go to the emergency room, and she's going to miss 2 days, and we're at the end of the month, so she absolutely has to get some things done. So I have to add 7 patients to my hugely busy schedule. Plus, we have a new patient, so it's 8 who's just come on. So I have my hugely busy plus 8.
Yeah. Oh, the dance of being a frontline worker at anything, right?
That's right. That's right. I was just busy, and tomorrow I'll be up early and out the door early. And I hate to treat people like a number because they're dying. Obviously, they deserve better. But at the same time, it's just that's what the position I put in. So it's this dance of doing high quality work, high quality listening, and unhurried presence without um, slowing down. It's like a razor's edge.
Yeah. Oh, so much is life. Wow. Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I can relate to that, and the being present, whether someone's living or dying, it can be easy to, like you said, for life and people in it to kind of just become a number. And we fall into it without even realizing it most of the time, I think.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I asked John to come and open the new channel with was a talk on technology. So, this was inspired after I had had a conversation with my mother in law, who was telling me how when she was growing up, they had no running water in their house and they had an outhouse. And now she's playing with virtual reality with her grandkids. And we started talking about the dynamics of how we live in the same universe, John, but we're literally living in completely different worlds simultaneously simply because of the generation that we were raised into. And it really made me start thinking of how important that is to kind of talk about how all of us got where we're at in this totality of this techno age that we're going through, because it is so vastly different, isn't it?
Yes.
There's people who grow up like a pioneer, and now they're on virtual reality. Like it's like living in a whole nother, like, where are we? So my question for you today was to ask you about your experience with technology. How did you grow up, and how did technology start to move into your life?
Well, when I was little, one of the most exciting topics was quote unquote the future. In the future, things are going to be exciting. Cars are going to fly. Remember the Jetsons? Did you
Yeah.
see the Jetsons TV show?
Yes.
Yeah, I viewed that as so exciting. And I was so excited by the moon. The astronauts walking on the moon. Futuristic was where it was at. Um, then I came under the influence of basically what we'll call hippies. Um, and the message that I gleaned from them, the wisdom is stay close to nature, stay close to essential reality. And the ultimate investigation is of your own mind. Meanwhile, so it was I left the futuristic interest behind. And I was much more interested in nature and studying my mind. Meanwhile, my house was just kind of a normal house. I drove past it 2 or 3 days ago. We had telephones. We had we switched from rotary to push button when I was like middle school, and I thought that was very futuristic and very cool. We got color television when I was about 11 or 12 years old, and I'll never forget being blown away by color TV. On Sunday night, they had the Disney show, and that was the first one that I saw, yeah, on my color TV. And I was just knocked out color,
Yeah.
you know. Um, and then just to be able to, I was a huge music fan, to be able to go to the store and buy a record and then a cassette and listen to any music that I wanted to. It wasn't streaming. It wasn't, a collection of 25 songs that I've curated.
Yeah.
It was an album by somebody, but still, it was just amazing to me. The technological breakthrough then. Um, at some point, Corey, I started getting uncomfortable with technology, though. Um, I liked new cars and breakthroughs, but then I started looking and thinking to myself, those cars from the 50s are much more beautiful. And everybody getting smartphones 20 years ago. It changed from being nice to being, it's required. If you're going to, there are many jobs that you have to have a smartphone for, and you have to provide it. Other companies, like my job where I work now, I have a smartphone given to me by the company, but and then they'll say things like to go to a baseball game or a sporting event or a concert venue, you have to have the ticket on your smartphone and hold it up to something. It's required, to go to the airplane. You also have to have your ticket on your smartphone and hold it up. The fact that it's required really makes me uncomfortable. I guess it's the hippie in me. Why is it? It's like compulsory, mandatory. Also, this thing called a QR code. I'm like going to a Brewers game, Milwaukee baseball, and yeah, hold on a second. My phone is my computer, and in order to park, I have to have a QR code. And I'm thinking to myself, in the old days, you pulled up here, you had friends drinking beer in the back seat, and you gave, oddly enough, $5 in cash to a person who accepted it or gave you change, whatever, and you went on through. It was very simple. You didn't have to have a smartphone with a QR code reader. So these are all kind of small things, I'll say, inconveniences, but it also there's serious. I have serious reservations too. Now, am I answering your question the way you wanted me to answer it?
Yeah. And I would like to kind of go back a little bit too, because you had talked about the futuristic element coming over society, and because of TV and radio at the time, what it sounds like is it kind of took a lot of people by storm. Did your as you were going through this kind of generational change, did your family kind of get on the boat, or did they think you were a little dreamy? Like, how did they perceive what you were taking on from this new generational communication technology?
They thought it was all good. My family thought it was all good. My parents, they were interested in it themselves. My dad loved to watch television. My stepmother did too. So it was the hippie stuff that they didn't quite like.
Ironically enough, huh?
Back to nature. What?
And and kind of rolling off what you just said too, did having, like, having this kind of these big social moments of the black and white TV going to the all color TV, like, did it change the way that your family communicated things? Like, did it change the way you expressed yourself? Was there any like changes within your family as these changes were kind of rolling out in this like mystical kind of way?
Yeah, I think it did. I didn't think about it very hard, but you know, um, one thing that's kind of funny. This isn't really answering your question, but we moved into a new house when I was a junior in high school. It had intercom, and air conditioning. And we started using the intercom. My parents were like, "You don't have to use the intercom. You can just talk." You know,
Yeah.
like, yeah, but it's so cool to have intercom. Then the intercom stopped working. My
Oh,
parents didn't want me. My parents didn't want me to use air conditioning either. I was like, "But it's so nice. You're cool in the summertime." Um, but that's the goofy side of the answer to the question. Did it change the way that we related to one another? I think my parents just started to feel uh, like relics.
mm,
You know,
yeah.
um, we were absorbing influences so fast. The younger generation, and absorbing ideas, especially once cable came on. In the early days of cable, you could watch all kinds of so many different channels and so many different perspectives. My parents were used to Cronkite and Huntley Brinkley, and a couple other things, and that was the extent of their news uh, news menu.
Yeah.
You know, so we started running circles around them in terms of uh, information.
Mm. Do you feel, now that you're older and you have grandchildren yourself, do you ever feel like that?
No, because two things. One, I keep up with information um, quite a bit. I'm on YouTube watching YouTube podcasts and information every day. And I pay attention to like Emergence Magazine. Shout out to Emergence Magazine. Spectacular source of perspectives. Um, so I feel like I'm way up in the vanguard in terms of people who are keeping up with information. While my grandchildren are addicted to games,
Mm.
and that's not mind broadening. That's mind contracting. So I don't feel like I'm being left behind. No.
Do you ever worry that our children are getting left behind because of they didn't have to learn how to properly use this stuff, so they just use it for whatever kind of instantaneously regulates the moment?
Yeah, it's a regular concern of mine.
Yeah. Do you
I tell my grandchildren, the two older ones, I say, be widely read.
mm,
Read books. Um, a lot of these games that you're watching and playing, these perspectives are pure bullshit.
Mhm.
You know, be widely read, expand your awareness of things. You know, uh, what's happening now, I think, um, with AI and the digital world of information, is that our human minds are being melded with a digital world,
Yes.
which is false.
Yes.
Um, so it's very concerning. Here's a line by Bob Dylan from the 70s. I don't care about economy. I don't care about astronomy, but it sure does bother me to see my loved ones turning into puppets. And I see that as a concern. We don't know how to discern propaganda
Yes.
from you know a sober-minded assessment of things. So
Let's talk about that right now, right? The discernment. I think that because that's a huge hot button issue right now, and it can be sensitive to talk about, and I do understand that. And for anyone watching, as always, our authority is based towards ourselves, based on our experiences. Do your own research. Um, and also, like you said, it's happening, right? As we've
yes.
worried, we've worried so much about robots taking over, we didn't realize we were becoming that the whole time.
Oh
And
yeah. Oh, that's
that,
good.
yeah, and that we're here. And I know a lot of people, it makes them very uncomfortable, but the reality is the documents have already been released to the public, which means it's public information, which means it's probably been going on 70 years. So these are things that we need to just start addressing and saying this is where we're at. And right now we're at a place we don't know what's real and what's not. So how do you, um, as you said earlier, speaking for your generation, which is total haha, he's not speaking for his whole generation, but his perspective of his generation, right? What are you seeing when you're online? Like, how are you discerning what's synthetic, and what's naturally manufactured for proper use of information?
That has evolved. First off, I have to say, Corey, I was fortunate to be trained as a journalist. University of Wisconsin Madison. Um, I would go to and this training is how I now discern. So I'm not. This isn't just a digression. Um, I would go in the morning. I would go down as part of my journalism studies. I would pull out like 10 different newspapers and read their different coverages of the same event,
Mm-hmm.
the same news day. So Des Moines, the ones that had great reputations: Des Moines Register, New York Times, Boston Globe, Chicago Tribune, Louisville Courier Journal, San Francisco, L.A., Minneapolis. And you'd read the different perspectives, and you'd start to get a sense of what was penetrating and what was elegant, and what was kind of a rubber sword. New Yorker magazine was very good. Um, New Republic, I think it was called, The Atlantic. Um, Now I sort of view all that stuff as coming. You got to read books as well as contemporary news coverage. Um, all that stuff, that entire news world that I absorbed and developed a sense of discernment, how to discern for myself, how to read something. It was coming from an overarching view, sort of a philosophical view, that if we just study hard enough, long enough, um, we will figure things out. And when we figure things out, we will make progress, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Um, and so I have this in my mind that that's an old fashioned point of view. Uh, it even has a name for it. Some philosophers that are contemporary call it the Blue Cathedral, or some kind of name like that. Um, I don't. I hate to say this, but I don't believe in progress in the way that it's viewed. Philosophically, we've got to absorb as much information here and here and kind of put it all together in a puzzle, and then we thrust forward. Um, it's more that I'm looking for authentic voices that are a little bit on the edge. Not because I like edginess, but just because they've been not empowered, the opposite of empowerment, disenfranchised, marginalized. Um, and their perspectives are important to embrace. And that we're not really trying so much to make progress as we are trying to achieve sanity and enlightenment. Um, you're
I
chuckling.
say that all the time, John, not to interrupt you, but I tell people all the time, I'm not trying to save the world. I'm just trying to keep my sanity until I get through this, right?
That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
We all just take different paths to keep that sanity. And mine just happens to be talking with wonderful people like you about these subjects.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And mine with you.
Thank
Um,
you.
so yeah. Humility, thinking that each person is talking is coming from a specific perspective, but also, I know one thing that really impacts me. There's a guy named Ken Wilber. Have you ever heard of Ken Wilber?
No.
Ah, that's so telling because 15 years ago, everybody in the world heard of Ken Wilber. Uh, Baby boomer. But he talked about a spectrum of consciousness. And he described each level of consciousness going from lowest to highest. And you can, as you're reading things nowadays, as I am reading things nowadays, I can typically see, oh, that's coming from this perspective. For instance, he color codes it. So he says the orange perspective is business and science. Um, Business and science mentality, that they're the highest good. Earlier than that, there's blue, which is uh, military and police, that they're the highest good. Law and order, God and country. Business and science has a pragmatic point of view. You're not being obedient to God and country. You're being pragmatic. Then there's green, which is um, human rights for everyone, including for animals. Um, it's sort of what you could call deep ecology point of view, green. Um, and then there's uh, higher levels, which are more viewing all the spectrum of consciousness not as a food fight and may one prevail, but as how are they going to talk to one another? How are they going to coordinate? And how are we going to set up a society that encourages people's growth up this spectrum? So, education. Education, it doesn't just do testings every 20 minutes about where you are. You're coming in, you've got an IQ of 134 and you're in the 92nd percentile, but actually views a person as a subject who is interacting with the world and increasing levels of inclusion of perspectives. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm really kind of getting out there, I think. But this all is kind of like my background awareness as I'm looking at things that I'm reading.
And I'd just kind of like to add for some, the applicable nature of it, and please, with your journalism background, come in if I go wayward here. But I would say when you're reading an article, if they're telling you a place but not telling you the place, that's a red flag. If they're saying a deputy showed up and took a record instead of saying this specific deputy showed up and took records, to me as a reader, that's a red flag, to be discerning in what I'm reading. When they're not being completely clear on the facts that normally, as you know, as a journalist, are public information, and there's no reason for a journalist not to state that unless it's untrue or it's a completely fabricated piece. Also, as we move into AI, I feel it's always very important to that people, and I think people are starting to experience this more and more, where they're thinking something, they're not even saying it, but they're thinking it, and it's showing up on their feeds and stuff. There's there's a great article from 1992 that talks about synthetic telepathy. I highly encourage everyone to read it. It's a great read. And I want to preface that by saying I'm not speaking about these things or sharing these articles because I want to induce fear. It's because this is where we are. And in order for us to figure out how we're going to move forward, it's important to accept where we are. And, these are documents that were in congressional assemblies since the 90s, and they talk about the synthetic telepathy. So whenever we're watching something and it's like, oh my God, they're talking to me, it's important for us to use that as a red flag. That's a discerning moment, that it may not be exactly what we think it is. If you think they're talking directly to you, it may not be what you think it is. And that's a good moment for discernment. It's not that we can't enjoy what we're seeing, but to be mindful that there's other things at play when we're watching that stuff. We're also seeing a lot of AI slop that looks very, very real.
Yes.
And for that, I encourage people, go look at the attributes of digital artifacts. So when people use certain types of, whether it's Microsoft, Adobe, photo editor, or they make a video, there's always artifacts left from editing. And if you're aware of the patterns that are left in those artifacts, you can be pretty aware whether what you're watching is synthetically made, or if it's people actually making this content for you. And the reason that's important is kind of because of this, the synthetic telepathy, because it uses emotional clusters from EEGs that we've all kind of accepted into our world through our hospital care, and kind of letting in these the pacemakers that are Wi-Fi, the CPAP machines that are embedded, all these machines that are embedded into all of this stuff and all of us. We have to remember there was an infrastructure built before those things could be implanted into people, and those things took decades to build, and they were built, and now that information is out there for you to look at and say, oh, I see how deeply we actually are connected here to everything, and how that impacts us as a person, right? And how that impacts other people. Because like you said earlier too, it's not only about being aware of this information, but it's being sympathetic to the fact, for some people, this is brand new information, and it's a lot. There's some of us who have been in the truther movement for our whole lives, and it's a lot for us. So if you come into it, it's not about fear. It's like John said earlier, it's about empowering yourself, because this is where we are. And what can we do? Well, and we can be discerning, right? We cannot we can do our best not to walk ourselves into situations that are designed to deceive us, by being aware that they're there and the artifacts of their own patterns, because just like us, AIs have their own patterns too. And so if we're aware of those things as we move through this, not as a fear mechanism, not as a you did this, you did that, none of that, just this is where I'm at, this is the tools I have, and this is how I can move. Like John said, not changing the world in the sense of like making it all fit, but showing up in the presence of how we want the world to look, which is the biggest gift we can give ourselves and everyone around us, I feel, at this point. What do you think, John, as I say that?
It's a lot to listen to and unpack and hear. But yeah, everybody has to be as alert as possible, and realizing that there is a financial incentive to turn us all into techno feudalists.
Yes. Yes.
So there's a guy named Peter Thiel. Have you heard of him? Peter
No.
Thiel.
Oh,
You
Peter
have?
Thiel. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and has a company called Palantir,
Mm-hmm.
who and they and you know, if you look at the stock market, they're going great guns, and the Wall Street Journal is praising them on being a great company. But their goal um, is universal surveillance.
Yes.
You know, so it's real, and don't think of this as a maybe proposition. This is a real thing, and it's out there, and it's gonna get stronger unless we can somehow figure out a way to laugh at it and make it and somehow contain it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's an I feel it's we're not gonna talk about that too much here because I think it's probably too much for what we're talking about today. But I think that's an important thing to realize too is even some of the top minds in this arena right now, they're gonna tell you they don't know. They don't know what to tell you to prepare for because they don't know, because that's just not how this works, unfortunately. Like we've put ourselves once again, we've walked ourselves collectively into a situation where it's kind of been taken out of our hands, and it's like, well, we see it happening, but we don't know how, right? And we don't know what it's going to do, which is the paper that I'm going to share in the link below. They talk about that very specific conundrum we're all in, is to be able to predict where this is going to go because of the way it works itself. The synthetic telepathy, just by trying to predict where it's going to go, will change where it goes. So it's not even necessarily productive. Everybody's sitting around trying to predict what it's going to do, but if we really listen to what everybody's saying, it may be almost counterproductive to try to predict where it's going, you know, because it just gives more ideas. So it's all, yeah, and it's all very fascinating stuff. And like I said, you can go um, in the description. I put, this is just one small facet of a much, much larger, picture, as we all know. And you can go down so many rabbit holes. But what is always important is that, how are we showing up to our own lives? Like you said earlier about being connected. You're really embedded in volunteer work and stuff as well as I am. Do you want to tell people how that like, did you get, like me, I got bit by the volunteer bug, and now I just love to volunteer for anybody that'll have me, basically. How does yours work for you?
To be perfectly honest with you, Corey, now that I'm back to this full-time job, I'm not doing volunteer work
That's
right
fair.
now.
That's fair.
Hospice chaplain takes up enough mental and spiritual energy for my bandwidth. But in the past and in the future, I have and I will. Uh, yeah, I'm interested in things that I really bother me. So I was a volunteer with an organization here in Milwaukee called Street Angels. People can look them up and donate if they want to. Street
Hmm.
Angels in Milwaukee. They brought food and clothing to the homeless,
Mm.
as well as tents. I was on part of the team that prepared the meals and also prepared the clothing. Sorted it out and put size 9 shirt with size 9 jacket, sort of thing. Um, so that is a big thing. I have done 14 years as a hospice chaplain, and that's my biggest contribution to the world. Um, Back when I lived in Kentucky, another thing that I did that I really enjoyed doing was going to a hospital on Sunday afternoon. Now, the rural folk of Appalachian, Kentucky would arrive on Sundays for medical attention for during the week. So they
Mm.
would arrive on Sundays, and then they'd be alone there at the hospital, and you could find them in the waiting room.
Mm.
So I would show up and I'd walk around and I'd just introduce myself and talk to them, help them feel that they weren't alone. If I have the energy for it, there's another volunteer activity that I would like to do. Um, I'm very interested in everybody making what contribution they think. You can't solve the world, so impact the world that you're in a little bit.
Mm.
So um, I'm interested in animal habitat and also forest preservation.
Mm.
So there is a thing called the Ice Age Trail here in Wisconsin. It's like 40 years old, I think. As a hospice chaplain, I met the guy that created it. One of the people that founded it. Uh, he died on my watch. But the trail is in northern Wisconsin, and you've got hiking areas. But the people that hike in it are conservation oriented. There's a lot of effort to conserve and enrich. What's the word I'm trying to find? Anyway, conserve and enrich um, the forests of northern Wisconsin, which
Mm.
also impacts habitat. So that's an area that I would like to be involved in once I'm retired again.
That's so that's so fair.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. It, and the just the reality, like you said too, sometimes like it can be as easy to change our world as just seeing somebody sitting alone and being like, can I sit? Do you mind if I sit with you?
Yeah.
And just
Hmm.
talking with them. It doesn't, you and I have talked about this a lot. We often want to make these big glamorous changes, but it's a lot of times it's those small things that we do that we think are really insignificant that really have the biggest impact on people. Um, and that's really beautiful. I know and I don't know if you've experienced this much in your volunteer work, but I find sometimes people get into volunteer work and they're so gun ho, and then they kind of start to see the dynamics that sometimes those situations can provide, and they just get so burnt out, and they're just like, I can't do this. I won't do this anymore. Have you seen that in your years of doing all this?
Yes. This is so sad. I said 14 years in the hospice work. Um, Stephen Jenkinson calls it the death trade. And I got to a point where um, I would meet a brand new social worker or a brand new chaplain or a brand new aide. And I'd think to myself, all right, 9 months, or that one's going to make it, or this one's going to burn out in 5 months. And I'd usually be right. You could just kind of see who um, brought their problems home with them
Yeah.
and put it on their family, and had also unrealistic thoughts about how much they could do, how much they
Yes.
could impact, um, things like that. So
And you
yeah,
bring up
I saw that
and
a
you
lot.
bring up a great point too, is that I've seen that a lot in my career, is since people can't be as helpful as they would like to be in their work, they go home and treat their own families very unkindly. And it's that reality check of, if you're here to give care, the first people we should do that for is our families, the people closest to us. And if we're not doing that, that should be our own red flag, right? Like, maybe I'm not seeing things as clearly as I should be. I say that as someone who's been through that myself. I've spent my whole career being, working in hospice and recovery, a bunch of, as you would love, just said, death trades, I guess. And I've been guilty of it myself in my career, and but I've seen really beautiful people. I mean, just burn out so quick. I mean, they just came in like shooting stars, and it's like you said, you have that moment of like you're really happy that person's there, but you also know they're not going to last, because the shine's almost too bright for the environment at times, and they don't know
Yeah.
how to navigate that just yet,
Right.
which takes time. So if you're a service worker and you're struggling with that, especially a young service worker, it's a very real thing, even for us people who have been in it for decades. I still experience it at times. Do you, John?
Yes, I did today.
So we say, yeah, so don't be hard on yourself if you are a helper bee out there. Like, you are appreciated.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
It's
you know,
it's
it's a struggle. It's definitely a struggle too.
it's a struggle, and it's a matter of self-awareness, and a
Yeah.
matter of pacing, and a
Mhm.
matter of saying, I've got to have my sleep, I got to have my water, I got to eat.
Yeah.
There's a culture um, that I see amongst hospice workers of, oh, I don't eat during the day.
Yeah.
I'm
I
like, you don't
didn't.
eat during the day.
Yeah.
I definitely do. What
Yeah.
do you mean you don't eat during the day? No, 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 I don't have time. Yeah, you do. You have not 8.5 hours. 9 hours. I buy a salad and eat it, in my car. I'm not spending a lot of money or a lot of time, but
Yeah.
you gotta do what you can to survive.
And you have to keep putting yourself first, otherwise you'll drown in your own noise. Um,
Oh yeah, that's well said.
yeah. And and so with taking all this stuff, I know we kind of went a little bit off topic there, but I think that was an important conversation to have too, as we move forward. As I told you earlier, I'm not necessarily asking you to project into the future what you think it's going to look like, but how do you see yourself, like, as you think about the future? Like, if we sit and think just where we are today and we think of the future, and you think about the best way for you as John to move through that, like, what does that look like and feel like to you?
Yeah, simplify, simplify, simplify.
Mhm.
I think what we're going to be facing here in the um, United States is an energy crunch. We have done 150 years of oil consumption, and we've come to view it. We don't really notice its presence as being the empowering thing. But as we do not have an infinite amount of oil in the world, and it gets harder to access because we've picked all the easy fruit. It's going to become more expensive. What are we going to do when the oil becomes expensive? And the war in Iran has already shown us the delicacy or the fragility of our oil supply. And so we're going to need to become simple. We're going to have to develop simple tastes, simple lifestyle, you know, simple eating habits. Um, I know that's my area of personal growth.
Mm,
Falling in love with simplicity.
yeah.
Yeah.
I like to say I only own what I can fit in my car.
That- Is that true for you?
Yes.
That's really great.
Most expensive thing I own is my car, and whatever I have, if I can't fit it in there, like, it goes away. And most of it stays in the car most of the time because I travel so much, and I like my things with me. I don't have much, but I do like my things with me.
That's great.
So yeah,
I like that quote of yours.
yeah. It's been very beneficial for me. There was a time in my life I was a very large consumer. When I started YouTube, I actually started with a beauty channel. I did acrylic nails, and like some people would send me products, and I'd review products and stuff like that. And John, there just came a point that I looked at everything around me and I was like, I'm drowning. Like I'm drowning in stuff. It's all stuff that at one point I had to have, and then I bought it. I used it twice, and now it just sits here. And I'm like, this is insane. I mean, it's just absolutely insane. And not long after that, I ended up moving up north for a couple of years. And when I left, I was like, I have all this stuff. Like, where do I even begin? And then that was the moment I said to myself, I'm like, you're going to take the most important things and you're going to put them into your car until your car's full. And when your car's full, everything else just goes in the trash. Everything else is just done. And so that's what I did. And then I moved away for a couple of years, and I added maybe 2 things to my house. But other than that, I lived with what I had in my car. I slept on a mat on the floor. Um, and so I was going through sleep training, like Buddhist sleep training. And that's just how I lived. And it was one of the most liberating things I ever did for myself.
That's really great.
Yeah. I'm not saying it was easy. And I fought myself for the first 3 months of it. But I got through it and I learned very valuable lessons. And most importantly, I feel what we learn when we simplify, John, and when we minimize things like that is we teach ourselves how little we actually need to live,
Yes.
to survive. And so it's like, well, if I don't actually need 3 lattes today, which is $30, right? Do I really have to work 12 hours today? Like, is that really necessary? If I don't get 3 lattes a day, would I have to work 12 hours a day? And the answer is no, right? So like, what sacrifices am I willing to make to give myself a life where my time and my attention are my currency, and they are for me to distribute? It's kind of like you were talking about earlier with that obligatory phone thing. I'm the same way you are. I don't like it. I don't like being forced into things. I don't think it's a proper way to base our society on the concept of forced compliance. But I feel a lot of it started with that dang phone, because people they expect you to answer right away. They'll send you question marks, they'll call 3 times in a row. And it's like, just because I paid for this phone doesn't mean that I've become your servant. But that's what it's taught us, hasn't it?
Amen. I totally agree with you.
I have friends that like that message right away from me, and I don't do it to be mean, but I will wait to answer them just because I don't want to get them. I feel that we teach people how to love us, and we teach people how to treat us, and so I don't want to get them on the path where I'm teaching them to treat me in a way where I have to be obliged to, that every text message or that every call. And for some people, whenever I suggest that to them, because it would take a lot of stress out of their own lives, they look at me like, oh my gosh, that's evil. But it's like, no, it's like one of the best gifts you can give yourself and that person, because you're teaching them a very valuable lesson too, because they're probably used to people giving into it. So, if you can kindly not give into it, it very well might open up their eyes to the way they're treating all people and not just you. And, that can be a very powerful moment of self-discovery for both people. So, don't be afraid to speak, people. It's, yeah, we live in a world people get mad. That's okay. Like John and I don't agree on everything, but that doesn't mean we can't still respect and love each other and have conversations, right?
Right.
So, like taking that into the world, I think is super, super powerful and beautiful. And John, before we go, we're getting close to that hour mark. And I told you didn't have to talk about this, but I didn't wait around to ask you if you wanted to. Disclosure is a big thing that's coming into the general public right now. Even the government's getting involved in all of it. What do you think about all this disclosure?
I don't know about this.
Oh, you don't?
No. What's the deal?
So the White House and Trump apparently decided that they were going to start releasing disclosure information on UAPs and UFOs and all the different sightings and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So
and then Kennedy information.
in the Kennedy information, yeah. So they've come
Okay.
out with the what is it? The Department of War website. I checked it before I got on with you to make sure that I had updated information. but they just released their second batch of information on that, which ironically enough, one of those articles is where I got the article of the synthetic telepathy that I'm going to put down in the description. So it was actually released from the government records as it deals with disclosure. And yeah, it's just a really interesting topic. So I didn't know if you had anything to say on it. If you don't, that's completely okay.
I'll say this. Um, I hear about this stuff, UFOs and stuff, and I'm like, okay, that's good. They're disclosing, I guess. I don't know. It's not my focus. My focus is on helping animals and our vegetative life thrive, regenerating, helping one another thrive, helping one another die with wisdom. Compassion and wisdom are where I'm at. So
Yeah.
when I hear about it's what compassion and wisdom is what I'm interested in. So when I hear about something like a disclosure trend or something, I don't really, as if it's reality that they're sharing, I think it's good, but it's not an area that I'm going to be occupying my time with. I hope that makes sense. I know
Yes.
what my life mission is. You know,
Yeah.
I'm engaging the world in the manner that I think matters in the amount of years that I have left.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do. Yeah.
So it's the word I was looking for before. I was trying to come up with a word for the people who are out working with the trail, the Ice Age trail, is regenerative. Trying to be regenerative to the forest and the meadows and to animal habitat, regenerate that which has been trampled on.
Mhm.
So that's my area of interest. You know, I don't even know if that answers your question at all, but
No, it was your answer. It was a perfect answer because it was your answer.
okay, good.
It's, for me, John, I asked the question simply because for me, it's another one of those generational perspective things, right? Because there were people who grew up with TV and they were next to the radio when the Cronkite did the War of the Worlds, and so they themselves have been embedded in this whether they wanted to be or not. And I think it's really interesting to see how the different generations are processing the disclosure. And I'm with you. I feel for me, a part of kind of going into the disclosure is that compassion, because a lot of people who have experienced these things haven't been heard for years. Not only have they not been heard, but they've been medicated, they've been told they're crazy, they've been told to shut up, they're wrong. And now like all this stuff is coming out that's basically proving them right. And they're like, wait a minute, like you spent so for me it's like the compassion comes in just kind of the acknowledgement to everyone that we all went through this weird thing together, and it all kind of stemmed from technology and the ability to share that technology and that communication. And it's just really interesting to me how people are seeing it so differently. So I appreciate you sharing what you did, because that's good information too,
Okay.
that just doesn't really seem important to you, and that's perfectly good too.
Well, if they're disclosing like the Epstein files and all the suffering that women have experienced and children have experienced, then I'm all for that disclosure.
From what I understand, that disclosure was a part of all this disclosure that we're going through. I guess I should be more specific when I say disclosure, because there is a bunch of disclosure going on. Um, And yeah, even like the Epstein case, people are getting very involved in that, and keeping our mind and our head on the swivel of, like you said earlier, like you said a minute ago, if it's real, right? We always have to remember we don't actually know if what we're being fed is real, if it's accurate information, not real, but if it's accurate information.
Right.
But I'm with you though. Regardless, children and women should not be put on the forefront of victimhood, especially when it comes to their physical safety and their mental safety. And we as a society shouldn't stand for that. And honestly, if they have all this information and they've put it out for us to read it, I don't know why people who couldn't actually do something because they have this information haven't done anything. I find that very bizarre because you and I can't really do anything about it. But if this information's out there, then I'm sure there's a prosecutor somewhere who, if this was true information, they would grab it and do something with it, right?
You're right. It's extraordinarily bizarre.
It's
This.
extraordinary bizarre. And that brings me to my last kind of thing on this is don't ever jump to conclusions. There's a lot going on, and it's fine to say these are facts, these are things that are there, but we don't know. We genuinely don't know. But we can know, like John said, kindness for one another and just, being on our own level. And like he said, carrying out your own life mission, find your life mission and be
That's right.
that.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, John, any words of wisdom to the audience here?
Yes. Who is it? Who is your audience? Who watches your show?
Well, I don't know. We're a brand new channel now. I'm doing it more from my psych background than my metaphysical background to try to keep it a little more scientific than
I
woohoo.
see.
So
Well, my word of wisdom. Not that I have any great wisdom, but you know, it's always wonderful to meditate, to become familiar with your own mind, and to read widely. There's a magazine out now called Emergence. I mentioned them earlier. They give beautiful perspectives as well as providing beautiful photography and art. Um, and they're a really good source for inspiration, um, for a nature-based perspective on the world.
hmm.
So that's what I have to share. Oh, and get your sleep.
Nature is so important. Yes, don't ever neglect nature. Oh, goodness. Yes. Great advice, John. Thank you so much, my friend, for being here with us. You warm my heart every time you come around. So thank you, thank you,
It's
thank
good to be with you.
you. All right. Thank you, everyone, whoever you see this, whenever in time. And we appreciate you joining us. Bye.
Peace, one and all.